is a regular scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. There are agendas available on the table near the entrance or online on the city's website. A public comment period is listed at the beginning of the agenda and will allow for up to 15 minutes for citizens to speak on a topic that does not appear on tonight's agenda. Speakers do not need to be residents of Waterville and will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. Any in-person attendees wishing to speak during the public comment period are asked to sign up on the sheet located at the entrance. It's now here, in case you want to add your name. Remote attendees are asked to raise their virtual hand if they wish to speak. Speakers will alternate between citizens who are attending in person and those attending remotely. All in-person speakers must speak from the podium and provide their name and contact information. If more citizens wish to speak after the allotted 15-minute period has expired, a continuation of the public comment period will be provided at the end of the agenda. Consent agenda items are routine items which are voted on in one motion and vote. Unfinished business or new business items are voted on separately. Councilors who have questions or comments on an agenda item may speak after being recognized by the mayor. After all councilors have had an opportunity to speak, questions and comments from the public will follow. Citizens must be recognized by the mayor and will be allowed to speak only once for up to 3 minutes per agenda item. Pledge of Allegiance. Oops.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, disclosure of conflict of interest. Anyone have an item for tonight with a conflict? Seeing none, let's move on to the city manager report.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Starting with the Kennebec County budget, as many of you know, there has been a proposed 43% increase to county taxpayers in this year's county budget. I did attend last week's county budget committee meeting to continue monitoring what's happening there. The budget committee did, in a very preliminary way, identify some small areas of potential savings, but it will not be enough to bring down the increase in any substantial way. I will just say publicly, I continue to be disappointed by their lack of a responsible and incremental approach to budget increases, saddling the municipalities of the county of Kennebec with this sort of increase in 1 year is very tough for us to absorb. It's nearly $500,000 here for the city of Waterville that we were not anticipating, and many smaller communities are also in the same shape or worse. So I'll also just mention at the council's request, I did invite our county commissioner to this meeting or a meeting of the council to discuss the budget, to hear our concerns and to provide feedback, but there was no response to that invitation that was sent to him. So I just want that to be known also. So we hope for the best with the county budget. I'm going to continue to monitor this. They will be having one more budget committee meeting to talk about the reductions. I will attend that. But as I said, it does appear that it's going to be a very small decrease, and we are looking at probably well over a 30% increase in our county budget this year. So that's pretty tough to swallow, but we will continue to monitor what's happening there. A reminder to please complete our comprehensive plan survey that's out in the field right now. We have over 250 responses so far. Residents can complete the survey electronically or paper copies are available at select locations around the city, including City Hall, the Public Library, and the Muskie Center. We're hoping to have all those responses due back by May 3rd. So if you haven't done one already, please fill that out. Just an update on the congressional directed spending process. We did receive notice that it is now the open application period. We're going to be submitting proposals to all 3 members of our delegation to continue with the projects laid out in our downtown vision plan, including the Appleton Street redesign and Silver Street, the Art Walk, and Spring Street pedestrian improvements. We're going to be packaging these as sort of a phase 2 downtown redevelopment initiative we've been counseled on from the congressional offices. It's a good way to pursue this. There is a tight deadline, about 2 weeks, to get everything together and submitted to our member offices. I want to specifically thank Michael, who's dealing with this and taking the lead and getting all of this in this very short 2 weeks. A lot of work, a big lift, so thank you for your work there. And I think we're really hopeful, I'm really optimistic about hopefully getting one or a number of these projects funded for the coming year. I just want to announce my next session of City Manager's Open Office Hours will be Monday, April 22nd, 3:30 to 5:30 at Educare, 56 Drummond Avenue. And my thanks to Educare for being willing to host this event. It's going to be great to be up there in Ward 2, I believe also, right? Councilor Gilly, is that Ward 2 or 1? That's 1? Okay, I'll be in your ward, all right. Bulk waste collection is coming up. A lot of people are excited about this. Waterville Public Works is offering a bulk waste collection week, the week of April 29th. The flyer has been released and posted to detail what items are eligible for collection, but all items should be placed curbside by 7 a.m. on April 29th. Lastly, just a reminder to please enroll in our city mass notification system. All kinds of great alerts and updates there. Waterville-me.myfreealerts.com is the place to do it. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor comments or committee reports? Councilor Gagnon.
I find that over the years, the least accountable elected officials is the county commissioners. I mean, they don't put out a bill themselves, you know, so we're going to take the hit on whatever happens with the county budget. So we got to get someone here to talk about it. There's got to be some explanation. I mean, I'd like to look at that budget. How can there be a 30% increase in 1 year? I mean, there's somebody missed something along the way. So maybe a letter. I don't know how you tried to contact him, but I'd send it to the chair even.
Yeah, there are a number of cost drivers, but obviously there are decisions to be made there. But I will say again, I'm deeply disappointed at the lack of representation we seem to have with the county, and for the county putting forward a budget and a 43% increase in 1 year. I mean, if we went to the taxpayers of Waterville in 1 year with a 43% increase, I don't think anyone would be sitting up here again, you know, the following year. So it's just irresponsible. But unfortunately, that's where we are. But I'll continue to watch it, and I'll send another invitation for someone to be here. I'm glad to do that, but it's a difficult situation.
Maybe we should look at our legislators too, because this is just passed along, right? And it's built into the city budget.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe we should let them send out their own bills.
Yes, we hand out tax bills, but we are basically in effect just billed from the county
Right.
For those expenses.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on to public comments. We have one person in person who would like to speak. So we'll start with Karen Heck.
Hi, I'm Karen Beck. I am in Ward 6, and I totally agree with you.
Can you flip the switch on? Great.
There you go. Good evening, I'm Karen Heck, I'm in Ward 6, and I totally agree that the delegation, our state legislature should be involved in the commission's budget. I mean, that's in the amount of money that we're having to spend. It's crazy. Anyway, that's not why I came to speak. I have become alarmed at what I perceive to be a lack of compassion for people in the area who are unhoused. This community has come together over the years to make sure that people who needed services here received them, whether it was through the creation of the Mid-Main Homeless Shelter, the soup kitchens, the creation of the evening sandwich program, the food cupboards in local schools, Project Hope, and the Poverty Action Coalition, just to name a few. The community has stepped up. And I'm hoping that compassion is not a thing of the past. People don't choose to be homeless or hungry. I hope that everyone here and those watching will take advantage of the Together Hearing, Holding, Healing exhibition that's downtown currently at the Schupf Center. I guarantee it will give you a broader understanding than some seem to have about the people in our community who are struggling and the challenges they face, the obstacles they are overcoming, and their thoughts about what makes overcoming those obstacles a bit easier starting with a smile instead of a judgment from those they meet. It's taken 40 years of trickle-down economics and a pandemic to get us here, so there will be no easy solution to the problem of homelessness. It's not going to go away without a lot of community engagement along with local, state, and federal resources. I came tonight to ask the city to convene a stakeholder meeting to assess the needs and resources available, to create a plan, to prioritize needs, and then develop implementation steps. This could be a part of the implementation of the downtown visioning plan or a reconfigured housing committee, or a standalone effort that addresses the many issues surrounding homelessness. But whatever the form, it needs to happen soon. There are state and federal resources that are now or will shortly become available, and I don't think that we want to return any money that might already have been allocated. There are lots of issues to solve, and it will take a lot of good minds, including the voices of the many organizations that are now serving people who are homeless, and will include the police, the chamber, KV-CAP, the Kennebec Behavioral Health, the schools, the religious community, and concerned citizens to create a plan. There are many people who care about making Waterville an example of the way a community can come together to make sure the whole community thrives, and there are plenty of examples of what we can achieve if we have the will. So thank you, and I look forward to participating in the plan.
Thank you. I have heard that idea circulating from many corners of the city, so I do hope that the city will respond with some kind of concerted effort to address the problem. Okay, do we have anyone online who wishes to speak?
We do not.
No, okay. All right, if there are no further comments in person, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt?
Second.
We'll do a roll call because we have a member online. Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yep.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Gagnon?
Yes.
Counselor Finch?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay, moving on to old business.
Motion to read by title only?
Second.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yep.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Gagnon?
Yes.
Counselor Finch?
Yep.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Ordinance 84-2024, amend the zoning map, 99 Webb Road.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Discussion. Councilor Gagnon.
I went out to this property this afternoon, and it seems pretty reasonable what the gentleman was asking. I didn't meet him, but I did speak to somebody there. But then I ran into other people along the road who have a, and this isn't necessarily germane to this motion, but who have a lot of problems with the other, especially the one at the airport facility. And we're going to have to take a hard look at that because it doesn't seem like it was done well. I mean, just from looking at it, it doesn't seem like it was done well. There's water issues, there's just site issues, and the impression I had from the few people I talked to, about 5, because they didn't want, I let them know I was their new counselor, they really didn't want me to vote for this because they thought there was enough, and that there was enough in their neighborhood. But as I talked with them more and explained to them, where it was going to be located, adjacent to the 95, and kind of, with this, barrier between them, I think they were okay with it. So I'm going to be supporting it, but we're going to have to revisit particularly what was done at the airport, I think, at some point. Thank you.
Yeah, just to address the other, there are definitely some impacts to some residents on Webb Road. We are currently working with that solar entity, code enforcement is, there are some drainage issues they need to address. There are replanting issues that they still need to address. So the city is aware of those issues. We're trying to work with them. It's been a rather slow process. But unfortunately, there are houses down there that have been impacted pretty substantially with runoff and drainage issues. So we're actively working on that, but you are correct in pointing these things out.
Just,
I'd love to be involved with any group meetings you have or anything about that.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but we did just revise our solar ordinance to address some of these issues. So we do have a much more robust ordinance now than we did.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Okay, let's
set.
move to a vote.
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yeah.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Gagnon, Counselor Finch,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Next.
Okay.
Ordinance 85-2024, adopt a historic preservation ordinance.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved. Second.
Okay. This is the first, well, this is our first discussion. So is there anyone that wants to speak to this? I see Michael's here. Or questions from the council?
If I may ask a procedural question, I believe we have to put the amended version on the floor
Right,
because
okay.
the original version was the one that was tabled at the last meeting. So I would just ask for a motion to amend by substitution.
So moved.
Second.
And can we vote on that amendment, please? Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yep.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Gagnon?
Yes.
Counselor Finch?
Yeah.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Can we move it as amended now?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second. Second.
Thank you. Now the amended version is on the floor.
Great.
So just
Thank
to
you.
maybe open it up if I could, and we have Michael here also. So as you know, a few meetings ago, we did a presentation on this, just talking about certified local government in concept and some of this ordinance. This is the culmination of the work of the Historic Preservation Committee over many months or longer to get this to this point. The amended version that you see is based on some feedback we received from our public safety departments as well as code enforcement. We met with them. They are all feeling good and very satisfied with the language in here at this point to address their needs. So we feel that everyone has sort of had a good amount of input now. It's here for our first reading. Michael, do you want to talk about any kind of general overview stuff, or maybe exactly what maybe some of the differences are with the amended version that code and fire had for input, or? Okay.
Good evening, Michael Hall, Community Development Specialist, and I serve as staff on the Historic Preservation Committee. So basically, there was very minor changes after discussing the ordinance with fire safety and codes. The main thing that was changed was on, if you could look on page 8, so it's section 8H. It's basically takes away the responsibility of any sort of life safety thing that was originally outlined towards the commission. The commission would have reviewed life safety measures, and it would have caused a little bit of redundancy with code enforcement. We basically removed them from that, so they're exempted. So any sort of life safety measures that code enforcement or fire safety would require, that is now just completely left to them. There's no certificate of appropriateness. There's no need to come in front of the commission to do that. It's letting them do their jobs. And you could see it also reflected on page 12, and that is section 11E. At the very bottom, the code enforcement officer has certified said demolition as required to maintain public safety because of an unsafe or dangerous condition as outlined in section 8H. So basically, it's repeating what was highlighted in on page 8. So basically, it's leaving code safety and life safety to the experts and not the commission. And so those were the two changes. And we also modified one word on page 11, which is, so page 11, which is section 11-7, we changed the word closely. We added the word closely in there. So that, it doesn't have to be an exact match, but it should closely match, materials. And, we leave that discretion to the commission. So we don't want to be too rigid.
There's also a change, it looks like on page 10, 11B2.
11B2.
Reasonable effort.
Every reasonable effort.
Yes, reasonable effort.
And so can you talk about why that was added in and what, channeling inner Bill Lee here, what does reasonable effort actually mean?
Basically, a reasonable effort, it gives some leeway for whoever's coming to in front of the commission. It gives a little bit of leeway to them. So it's not so rigid. Again, this would be, case by case basis. It's basically to not be as rigid. So with the employment of any decision.
Well, so if someone has, let's say, an old Victorian house and they want to turn it into, I don't know, a hair salon, that's, how do you determine reasonable effort since the original intended purpose of the property would have been for housing and the effort that they're proposing to in the restoration and preservation of a historic building is outside of its intended purpose. I feel like this is a little too heavy-handed towards telling people what they can do with their property outside of what would be covered by our already existing zoning laws.
So I feel like I feel like the main point of the language is to sort of guide whatever's being done to that property to maintain the integrity of that property as it was originally in use. So if there was a hair salon, but it still maintains the look of a residential home, it still maintains the look of if you were doing something that was outside the scope of what you would do for a normal commercial building, but it was approved, as long as it maintains the scope and the flavor of the original intended use of that property.
Okay, so the intent isn't to somehow circumvent zoning laws. The intent
No.
is more just about preserving the inside and the outside of the building as close to their original form as possible.
The outside. Yeah.
The outside.
There's no interior.
There's no interior. Okay.
Go ahead.
The general purpose of any of this, historic preservation in general, is so that a site that is deemed significant, historically significant, is able to be a memento for the community to remember why that site was important, what happened there. And so being able to look at it and say, oh, that clearly was the house that Lombard lived in when he, invented the, whatever that is, the tractor wheel or whatever, the Lombard log hauler, et cetera, right? And it's an apartment building now that's subdivided, et cetera, and there's rooms that have laundry machines in them that never did before, what have you. But it's so that it serves as a physical touchstone for our collective memory, so that those stories, those chapters, those people in our shared past are able to be reclaimed. That doesn't mean that the building can't have new life and new uses. And I think that's what you're capturing well in this document.
Absolutely.
So I have a couple questions. And I do want to say, I think it's a very thorough and thoughtful document, so thank you to the committee. Do we have any, there's no determination here of what constitutes historic in terms of age?
So the guideline is 50 years or
Okay.
older. Yeah.
So that is the assumption?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And regarding the question of life safety and the amendments, I'm wondering if any changes need to be made to Section 6. Let's see, 6A6, which talks about improvement projects and objects on contributing properties such as lighting, sidewalks, raised handicapped access ramps, paving, et cetera. So that would require a certificate of appropriateness for
If
anything in that
it's-
category, but it seems like, I mean, handicapped access ramps are included there. So how does that mesh with the changes that were made to this amended version?
So like, if it's outside of what's already labeled in life safety in the Waterville Public Ordinance and the life safety codes, then it would come under review.
Okay, so we would be saying that someone who wanted to build an access ramp would need to come and have it approved by the commission?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Only if it affects like the sight line or the rhythm of the street or anything like that. I would say that we saw these kinds of things just one or two times in Augusta, in the Augusta Historic District Review Board, and we work with them in every possible way.
Great. And I'm interested in this idea of changes, because I love history, and I think this is wonderful. But then also we have, a living city that's changing
Absolutely.
always. So the section that talks about changes that have acquired their own significance, how will that be identified by the commission?
So typically when you become a certified local government, one of the great things about it is you receive a lot of technical and educational assistance from Maine Historic Preservation Commission. And so along with that education technical assistance comes a guideline, that talks specifically about that. It's generally on a case-by-case basis. So it's depending, like, for example, something doesn't necessarily have to be 50 years old to be historically significant. Think if the president visited and gave a speech, a very important speech at a local building that was only 30 years old. I would think that's something that Waterville would probably want to preserve or mark or something, because it has become, a part of the community's history. And there's examples of that throughout the country where something didn't for very.
That makes sense. But changes on a building would be, something that's 100 years old and then something that's 50 years old,
Yep.
still going from Victorian to,
So there are some, I'll put on my historic preservation hat for college, but like there are some buildings that acquire some changes because buildings do change over time, and we're not living in a museum, we're living in a city. So some buildings do change over time, and like I'm thinking the Foster Reddington House, for example. If you look at that house, the turret that was there, if I was hearing Nancy correctly, was added much later to the house, but nobody would be advocating for the removal of that because it actually adds to the overall property. But there are some additions that actually detract from the overall property. I'm thinking I'm going to take it back to Augusta, for example, 217 Water Street, which is where State Lunch is. On that building, for a long time, it had an aluminum facade that was covering up a glass sign and period elements. And it not only detracted from the building, it was detracting from the rest of the buildings on the street as well. So there are additions that were added to kind of modernize the building, but really it was just a tack on. So there's a difference between, an addition and a tack on. And it can be a fine line, but it's one that I'm very sure that a very good commission could discern.
Okay, those are very helpful examples. Thank you.
Just very quickly to Councilor Green's, the section 6A6 in regards to any improvements being made. And I've scoured this document over and over again, and I might be breezing past it. However, say for instance you have a building in the historical district and it meets all the criteria, and someone's like, yeah, I'm just gonna, you can't, like a heat pump is specifically mentioned. So if someone puts up a heat pump, we realize what has happened. Is there a penalty or is there a consequence, and how is that enforced?
So this document really regulates site. So if it can be seen from the street, or if it's affecting, for example, the front of the building. So if it's going to detract from the nature, if it's from behind the building, they're putting the heat pump behind, it really wouldn't matter for this or to the commission.
But say, for instance, it was in.
Yes, and then
So how would that be?
and if that was the case, then yes, it would be up to code enforcement under the administrative and procedures policy.
So if I'm understanding Councilor Gillies' question, so would there be a possibility of moving the heat pump to a place where it wasn't visible from the street?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Well, I think we would work with anyone, to whatever means necessary. This is not meant to be draconian in any way. This is meant to be, as Michael said, a good guide to talk about our history and preserve our culture. But I think, there's going to be more than enough willingness to kind of work with property owners to,
Okay, well,
work
we're
it out.
just reading through it and asking questions.
Right, and I understand the importance of of preserving our history in Waterville. However, I think it is a very slippery slope in regards to Councilor Finch's example about telling people what they can and potentially cannot do to the buildings that they own, and whether or not if they do something, if there's going to be a consequence. And I understand, working with people, I get it, but it's about perception, and we need to make sure that we are crystal clear that we're not out to try to, jam anybody up. That's all.
And I would agree with you. And I don't think, from working with the committee that we've been working with, I don't think that's the goal of anybody, is to be draconian or stop development or stop any kind of thing. They're just trying to preserve what we have as a community. It's not this concept is not revolutionary by any means. If you go back to the earliest historic preservation ordinance ever written, it was actually 460 by the Roman Emperor Majorian, and he stopped the looting of pagan temples. And it's the reason why, if you go to Rome today, you can visit the Pantheon, and you could visit the Temple of the Vestal Virgins, and all of that. It's the reason why, in the Roman Forum, it's the reason why there are parts of that left. And so I think it's just preserving what we have. I definitely agree with you. I would not be encouraging this if I thought it was going to be draconian in every measure, and we definitely will work with everybody the best ability.
I also will just add to that this kind of structure, these kinds of structures are in place because actually there were periods of time in America where this kind of consideration, these sorts of tools, these sorts of protections were not in place. If you look at the post-war era in the United States, this was a time of rapid construction and demolition of older structures, and a lot of buildings were built in mid-century America that are perhaps regrettable to the contemporary eye that were put in place of structures that we may wish to have preserved at the time, right? Up through the 80s and 90s. And so the point you're making is well taken, but it's also in response to forces of modernization and development that were pretty unchecked for a large part of the 20th century.
Councillor Gagnon.
The enforcement, I guess, I get a little nervous, and I know that we probably have some historic structures around here. You know, I've been by the Beehive many times, and I think that might probably earn a qualification or something. But now, so how are buildings put in that historic? Is it like a National Historic Register? Is that worth dealing with, or is it somebody's decision at the local level that your house is going to be subject to these rules?
No. So typically, like when forming an ordinance, it's already buildings that have already been added to the National Register or already districts. And right now, we really only have one district that's added, and that's the downtown district, which it comprises about 35 buildings. I think I included a list of everything in the presentation. I'm happy to email that to council of everything that is included on the National Register. That includes, buildings as well. But no, that's why we actually kind of put in a protective measure so that the commission does have checks and balances, and they can't just willy-nilly add a house or, not without the owner stepping forth or not without the neighborhood stepping forth. And then it would be ultimately the commission could conduct a survey, and it would ultimately be up to council whether to add it or not.
Thank you.
So one of the things that this ordinance will enable is the creation of new districts,
It could.
correct? Right.
It could.
And so that would be a case where there would be a hearing and neighbors could come forward and discuss and,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I had one other question that I wanted clarified, and that's under 5E. Yeah. This is individual historic properties. So it says adding additional individual non-contributing historic properties or sites. I really didn't understand this section.
So
Could you explain it?
Yeah, so the non-contributing means that they were originally considered non-contributing to the district or to the area, or they were considered not historical enough to add. So, but if a person comes forward with a case and they want, let's say it's an individual building that was originally non-contributing, and a person comes forward with the case and they say, we think that we should be added because of X, Y, and Z, and they make a compelling case, then it could be added as contributing.
I see. I missed the context that this is all within discussing the historic district.
Yes.
So a historic district could be created with non-contributing buildings in it.
Yes. So a historic district could include buildings that are originally non-contributing, but they wouldn't be subject to the same sorts of things as, so they could be within the district, but they, like, for instance, the Schuff Center, for example, it's a modern building, so, but it's within the downtown district, and there's it talks about that within this ordinance, that as long as it's not affecting the rhythm of the street or the buildings around it or anything, modifications could be made where they don't have to come in front of the commission, because it is a non-contributing structure.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it does make sense. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Anyone online, Patty? No. Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
sorry, it's really bothering me, so I'm just going to move to amend Section 11B2 and to strike to use a property for its originally intended purpose. I think that's too onerous on property owners.
Could you repeat that, Councilor Finch?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Could you repeat that? 11B2,
11B2, and it would strike to use a property for its originally intended purpose.
Council Finch, would you keep it the same, or just remove that specific text?
Just move that line so that it would read, "Every reasonable effort shall be made to provide compatible use for a property that requires minimal alteration to the character-defining features of the structure or site and its environment."
I'll second the motion.
Do you want me to email that to you, Patty?
You can. I think I got it, but
Okay.
it's fine if you want to. That's fine.
Okay.
Can you speak to how that first clause adds to the meaning in a substantive way above the second clause?
So an example would be, and usually this is more if it's an individual structure rather than a district, so rather within a district, but let's say you have a place that, let's say you've got a house, but you turn it into but you want to turn that into a restaurant, for example. There are certain elements that would have to be added to that house that could alter the historic nature of that house by turning it into a restaurant. So that's why there's things like that. The reasonable word is added in there.
Meaning that then that the house may look the same from the street in the front as a restaurant. However, the historic nature of the site is altered because the use of the space is so divergent from the original use for which it's historically significant.
In some cases, depending on the house is in a neighborhood, or in some other cases, it could affect the historic integrity of the property. Let's say if certain types of lighting need to be added to the house to make it equipped, for a restaurant, or if a parking lot needs to be created, or if, it needs to have X, Y, and Z. So I think that's why a lot of the language that you see in these ordinances are pretty boilerplate. Like, if you go, there's 11 other cities, but I would be happy to look and see if that particular language has been struck. I do see where you're coming from. I mean, I hope you see where I'm coming from too, but I definitely see where you're coming from, and I'd be happy to look into that and make sure it wouldn't affect the.
So just to be clear, though, to understand your response, you are saying that that first clause does bring new meaning to that section
It could, yes.
above the first, and that new meaning you think is an important part of the mandate of the Historic Preservation Committee or whatever.
It could, yeah, and I think that's why every reasonable effort. It's still, it might sound a little harsh, but it also is, it also
Vague.
leaves a lot of leeway
Yeah.
within that as well.
So we have a motion and a second.
You vote on that.
Anyone else?
I'm just wondering if this makes sense as it stands without that clause. Every reasonable effort shall be made to provide compatible use for a property that requires minimal, maybe maintain. I do think that use a property for its original intended purpose is a lot stronger than maintain compatible use, so I'm in favor of the amendment, but to me, it seems a little vague, so.
Vagueness can cut both ways.
Yeah. So I guess we need to vote on the motions on the floor, but,
I think Counselor Gagnon had his hand up.
oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering, there's a hurry for this?
Yeah,
There is?
no.
Oh. And whether or not, if you postpone this
Just kind of straight out.
to get this squared away, I'm sorry. To get this squared away, this is the first reading, is that right? So would we be able to, the reading is accomplished? So if next meeting, if we get this all squared away, that could be the second reading also?
Sure, it can be amended next time for the second reading.
Yeah, just take,
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is,
take a few weeks and tighten up the language in that sentence, and he'll get a chance to do his homework.
Yeah, I'm happy to withdraw for 2 weeks and discuss this before the next vote.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe we can bring the better language forward.
Because we like it.
all right.
who seconded?
So then we're just voting on the
First reading.
This amended
amended version
Yep, that was provided in the packet.
that was provided in the packet. Okay. All right, I think we're ready to go.
All set?
Just kidding,
Count-
Anyone
I'm
else?
sorry.
Last chance?
I'm just being a parliamentary geek.
Oh,
I don't know who
He
seconded.
withdrew.
I don't know who seconded his motion. You did, and you withdrawing also?
Yes.
Sorry.
okay, withdrawing the
I
second.
withdraw.
Time in the legislature.
Got it,
I teach Robert's rules.
yeah,
Now you let us know that.
okay.
All set?
And I need to talk to you about a few things. No.
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yep.
Counselor Green,
Yes,
Counselor Gagnon,
Yes.
Counselor Finch,
Yeah.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We should be saying.
yes, thank you. All right, moving on to new business.
To a packed house.
Resolution 87, 2024, authorized the renewal of a special amusement permit to the VFW Post 1285.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion?
Set.
Okay,
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yeah.
Counselor Green,
yes,
Counselor Gagnon,
Yes.
Counselor Finch,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. On to
resolution
88,
88. Oh.
2024, authorize the renewal of a special amusement permit to the Elks Lodge of Waterville, Maine Incorporated, doing business as the Elks Lodge.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Discussion. All right.
What's a better place to go for a drink, the VFW or the Elks? That's what I want to know.
No, we're taking care of it all.
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yeah.
Counselor Green,
Yes,
Counselor Gagnon,
Yes.
Counselor Finch,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Resolution 89, 2024, authorize the extension of the sunset date of the Housing Committee.
move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? I can just add that this will give the committee a chance to finalize its revolving loan fund proposal to bring to council and wrap up its work. So 2 more months. All right. Oh, Councilor McCormick.
I would move to send you out to Labor Day weekend, just because even after we do that, something unintended will show up. And you can clean up your loose ends or anything at that time.
Do you need that amount of time, or is this a reasonable date in which we can?
I mean, there are things unintended show up. ugly things stick their head out. I was just suggesting move it out till Labor Day so that even after we've approved or whatever the funding, if something else,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I know that the council wants to see the proposal. I think we're also looking at some kind of revised charge for the housing committee. So that might give us a chance to do so. But I'm not sure what the implication is for the committee if we are finished our work before then.
You don't need to meet. You don't need to use that time, right? As long as you
Right.
meet.
We don't have to meet.
No, you need to
Okay.
meet once a year, right? Whatever
Yeah.
it says.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
you've been busy trying to do some important work, and I know there are members on that committee that will probably appreciate having that little bit just to get.
well, thank you. I appreciate that point because I think it's true that, we've been meeting for 3 years and we have a lot to reflect on. And also, we do want to leave the council with some really solid recommendations going forward. So I'm fine if that's an amendment you want to make.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
To Labor Day, is that what it was?
I think end of August. I mean, just to keep it by month.
Sure.
Council McCormick, is that your motion?
That's fine by me, yes.
August 31st, and the second?
Yeah,
Correct.
sure, I'll be the second. That's cool.
Shall we vote on the amendment?
Yes.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yep.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Gagnon?
Yes.
Counselor Finch?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Can we move it as amended?
So moved.
Second.
How's that?
Okay. Any more discussion? All right, we're good to go.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito? Counselor?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yep.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Gagnon?
Yes.
Counselor Finch?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
How do we move into executive?
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes, I move.
just a quick note before we do executive session. If we could change A to E for the statute that we cite, E would be the proper one to cite here. So just whoever reads this, it should be E, not A. Thank you.
Okay, so I move that we go into executive session to address personnel matters, IMRS 4056E.
Second.
It's actually 1 MRS 6E. And in addition to that, there will be no business conducted at the end of the executive session, just to adjourn.
Correct.
We can adjourn there.
Can adjourn in the other room, just so that folks won't continue watching and waiting.
All right, yes.
Okay?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Hey, Flavia.
Yes. Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yep.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Gagnon,
Yes.
Counselor Finch,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay.